All right, everybody, welcome back. This is part two of the two-part series with Charles Monroe Jr., our conversation with him. We are jumping into seeing energetic entities, so don't worry about that. We're jumping right into that. And then we're also going to talk about some eye-opening case studies and stories of healing using frequency and much more. And now, with that said, let's get to the show.
This is he's an example. When I scanned him, he kind of shut down his third eye because he was tired of seeing it. But he said he would. You know how you did like this. He said this is what he would see around the kids. Like things were telling them what to do and feeding off of them
He saw the
energetically.
entities.
Yes, yes.
Would he describe them to you or draw them?
He told me what they look. He said they look very weak, like really weak. They were feeding off of the kids' energy.
The entity looks weak?
Yes. Some people call these archonic energies or archons. Yeah.
Wow. So
I'm really going off on a tangent now, but
hey, okay, this is great. So let's bring that back, and I want to combine the two. What are your thoughts on the harmonic egg? Right? I think Gail in the most recent episode she mentioned that it goes up to 1600 hertz, and let's say you have a bully that goes into the harmonic egg.
yeah.
What do you think happens to that entity?
I can tell you what happens. I've seen it.
Oh,
So they cannot stay on them in that egg. I had a young lady come in. I said I have one of my clients is a pediatrician, and she recommended the family bring her to me. And she was autistic, but she had a entity, and I didn't realize it at first because her father was able to tell me this is not her normal behavior. He's like she'd be in here talking your head off, and she would just say nothing, could barely do the scans. When I put her in that egg, and she willingly went to the egg, her whole voice changed, and it was a very high pitched voice, and I immediately recognized it as an elemental,
really?
and it said yes. It kept saying, "Too strong." It even started singing like too strong, like a little elemental. I don't know if you ever seen the movie The Spiderwick Chronicles. That's what it reminded me of. My kids
I gotta
loved that
watch
when
it.
they were young. But they were the elementals that lived in the forest. They had to put like a salt ring around the house to keep them from coming in. That's what it reminded me of. And it kept saying, too strong, too strong, too strong, too strong. And the father had to get in there and try to hold it down. And I told him, I said, don't do that. I don't want her to associate this with
And
trauma.
it was saying it through her mouth.
Yes. And I had to ask them, I'm like, is this how she normally? He was like, no, this is not her. We don't know what this is. And then after we took her out, we didn't do a session with her because as soon as she got in the egg, that attachment felt that energy. And
Before
it said,
anything
it
started.
literally said, it's too strong. I never even had a chance to shut the door. It said it was too strong, too strong, too strong. And then when we took her out, she started apologizing profusely. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
So then what'd you do?
Well, she never got in. She actually had to go home, but I recommended them to another shaman that I know that could do the work. But I'm not sure if they ever went to go see her because she could remove those entities from them
I was gonna say.
remotely. But I don't know if they ever went to see her. But I have clients all the time that they tell me they see things coming out of them in there.
Wow.
So so it's that's their vibration is that high in there.
I can see
It's
this
yeah.
like my mind went there. I'm like, you know how like couples and they're like, you're possessed. Something's wrong with you. All right, let's go to the egg. Let's find it out. Let's see what
I
happens.
get that all the time, man.
Yeah.
I get that. I get the wife bring the husband, put him in there, and he's like, "I'll break the egg." I'm like, you're not gonna break the egg.
Watch him see stuff like coming out of his body. He comes out. So what'd you see? Nothing. I'm perfectly fine. You need like a Ghostbuster trap outside of the
Mm.
egg so you can trap them so they don't hop on when they come out.
That egg can do some amazing things. I've helped people in ways I never imagined I could. Um, I had a young man come in. He's like 30 years old. His wife to be bought him. He's about to get married. And I scanned him and I looked at the energy going to his lungs. And the lungs is where you hold grief.
Mm.
And I'm looking at the energy from the lung from the left meridian versus the right meridian. So the left meridian is female, the right meridian is male. And so I asked him, I said, "Are you grieving a male?" And he looked at me and he held his head down and he said, "I have survivor's remorse."
Oh,
And I said, "From what?" He said, "I was in gangs when I was young." And he had lost all of these friends in gangs. And he was always the dude that could tell them, "Don't go there, don't do this, don't go do that." And they would do it and they're gone.
mm.
And I said, "Well, we got to work on grief," because I saw all that extra energy going to his lungs. So the body responds, and this is what the bio world shows me. It shows me the body responding to your disposition. So if you're angry, I'll see a lot of energy going to your liver. If you're angry at a male, I'll see it going to your liver, and it'll be dominant on the right meridian.
Wow. And it's amazing how you can see that. And it's like,
You can see it.
wow.
I
And
have,
yeah, go ahead.
and I put him in that egg, and I put him on the music that we use for grief, which targets the lungs because that's where you hold grief. And we have a little button that you can press in the egg if you want to get out early, you know. And he pressed
Emergency
the
button.
button. I let him out. He went to the bathroom, stayed in there for a long time. He came back out. He finished the session. He came out. He's had his head down. I said, "There's nothing you could tell me that I haven't heard before." And he said, "Man, I reconcile with each and every one of those guys in that egg."
Wow.
And so for
Wow.
me to be able to do that for him, 30 years old, was about to get married, about to start his life, to help him clear that survivor's remorse that was just weighing on his lungs. And sometimes people will come in and they'll be grieved. They'll have lung issues, right? Had them all their life. I had just had a woman in lung issues. I could hear it when she's breathing. Lost so many brothers and sisters when she was young. It affects the lungs.
Huh. That makes me think of myself when I was younger. I had bronchitis, but there wasn't like a loss. There was just a separation of parents. So there was a loss of a father figure.
That does it too. Yeah, so it's two things. It's loss and the severing of a relationship. Your body treats it the same. Body
Like
treats it the same.
it's like when people break up and they're like, "Oh, I'm leaving you," and they're like, "Oh," right? They have that like they lose all the air in their chest, and yeah,
The example I always remember is it kind of drove it home for me when I started learning this information. I remember Christopher Reeve, the guy that played
hmm
Superman. Now I remember when he died, and his wife just loved him to death. She was just grief stricken, and then she died like a year later of like lung cancer. This woman didn't even smoke.
wow, yeah, yeah, right. And that showcases how everything starts at the energetic level, and
Yes.
the when you look at the physical side of things, you might as well just be walking or running in circles because you're not acknowledging the root cause, which is on the energetic level. And we're finally starting to be able to give the energetic side of things a chance to look at, right? So it's actually, yeah, it's nuts.
I have another. I had a woman come in. She was about to have her gallbladder removed.
Mm.
They did a sonogram and found a huge mass in her gallbladder. So she was in excruciating pain. And so when I scanned her, I see all this energy going to her liver. So the gallbladder is related to the liver. The liver creates the bile and it dumps it into the gallbladder. The gallbladder is like a reservoir. Then the gallbladder spews that bile into the stomach for digestion, so you can digest the food, break it down. But when you have a lot of cholesterol in your bile, it sits in the gallbladder and it starts to turn into stones.
Hmm.
But what makes the liver compromise the bile is the liver trying to keep up with your disposition. And in her case, it was anger. So when I scan her, I see all of this energy going to the liver on the right side. And I'm like, what man are you pissed off at?
Yeah.
And it was her husband,
Hmm.
her ex-husband. This was in June. She was just divorced, I think, in November. But she's holding a lot of anger and resentment for years. And it was compromising her liver. And I could show you what that looked like. I actually have this in that slide.
Oh, that would be awesome. As you're describing this, I'm thinking of all the people that could have similar situations. I'm like, you have a messed up liver on the right side.
So this here, you see this arrow here?
Okay.
That red arrow, and that's the liver. This is all this. So you want this red line here to be inside this green area.
So we're looking at the energy diagram, and it looks like
This is from the
concentric
biowall scan.
circles. So it's,
Yes.
okay, it's the biowall scan. So yeah, so you just have like signatures that are going outside of the good zone.
Yes. This is the good zone. The green zone is the good zone. This is considered increased energy. This is the liver, her liver. It's on the right. The liver over here on the other side doesn't have so much energy going to it. You can see it's clearly spiked here
Yeah.
on the right. Right? So helped her get rid of the actual gallstones with drums and rattles. 4 sessions did that. And she was getting CT scans in between the sessions. So she was watching them go from this huge mass down to one little 5 millimeter gallstone.
Are they disintegrating?
Yes. The drums and rattles break them up. And so, but the root cause of this is anger and resentment. So I told her we can get rid of the gallstones, but you have to work on the root cause, or else you'll just end up back in here. And that's another thing with dealing with the egg. I'm using this to try to help find the root cause, because that's ultimately what's going to help them heal. Because, or else you're just dealing with symptoms. That gallstone is a symptom. So, okay, I help you get rid of the gallstones. You're still pissed off 24/7. You're going to get them again.
Right.
Right? So we had to work on forgiveness. So after 4 sessions of drums and rattles, the 5th session, we actually did a session that targeted the liver. The last session, we did a forgiveness mantra called the Ho'oponopono. And we have a track where that plays in the egg. And that's, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a Hawaiian mantra. It basically, you're saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I'm grateful.
Wow.
And you keep saying that. And we did that with the intention that she was forgiving her husband. But this is what her liver looks like. You see this green circle here?
Yeah.
This is ideally where you want this red line to be. This red line is your actual energy. She went from all of that energy, which was where this red arrow is pointing. This is where it was before. This is where it is now. This is where it was after 6 sessions.
Wow.
And the gallstones were gone. The doctor didn't have to do anything. He wanted to meet me.
We're in the future, man. We're using ancient technology, and we're
Yes.
using current modern day methods to just see what we're doing when it
Yes.
is right. Because in the past, they knew what they were doing, but they didn't have a LCD
couldn't show you.
display.
Yeah, they couldn't show you. And that is the key. We're able to take these ancient technologies and catch up with them by visualizing it. And that's really what my clients really like. They have a history, so they see what they look like, and they have a history from week to week. Some of them print them out. They highlight things. They come ask me questions. It really gets them involved in monitoring their energy.
Wow.
You know.
What are your thoughts? My last question as we close out today. Have you done a comparison with meditation and the bioscans outside of the egg? I'm curious.
Actually, I have for myself.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I have for myself. It works.
Awesome.
Even I even tested remote Reiki. I have a friend; she has a remote Reiki channel on YouTube, and I watch her because I can feel her. Like when I'm just watching her, my stomach starts making sounds, and I know something's happening.
You have to watch
And
in the
then,
bathroom.
no, I
Gotta
watch
sit
right
down.
in
Gotta sit down for this one.
no,
I'm ready.
no,
I'm
no,
thinking about this. I'm like, I need to. When you send me that YouTube, I gotta be like within proximity. She's a diuretic.
well, she's amazing, and she's powerful. You know,
Right on.
Reiki's another thing that's you can do that over distance. You know that there's no. You know, one of the first things you learn. We talked about quantum physics. You know, first thing you learn in quantum physics. I remember the first day of class. The professor said, "Look, first thing we're gonna learn
You
is
took
there's no such."
quantum physics class?
Yes,
Whoa.
it was interesting because I told you about that transition, that 3-2 program I was in. So
Mm.
after my 3 years was up at AU, I went to University of Maryland College Park. And the way that program is supposed to work, you take engineering prerequisites at AU, and College Park is supposed to take those credits, right? They wouldn't take my physics credit. And I'm like, I got A in physics. So, and I showed them the book and everything. And we even went further in the book at AU than they did at College Park. And they would not take my physics credit.
Really?
So yes, and I was pissed off about that. So they said, "You guys said I'm not taking that class again. I got an A in that class. I'm not paying to take the same class again." So I ended up taking a class called Modern Physics, which turned out to be quantum physics. They just
Wait.
called it modern physics back then.
So before the name was okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that's just what they called it there, but it was quantum physics. That's what it was. And so that whole scenario used to piss me off, but now I realize I would have never taken quantum physics if that didn't happen to me. Something made sure I took quantum physics. Because the prerequisites for engineering, you have to take differential equations and all that stuff. And you take stuff like differential equations, it's all theory. You don't really, like, what do you use this for?
Right.
So then when you get quantum physics, you realize what you could use it for. So that helped too.
Most people don't make it that far. Man, I would
Yeah.
have studied. Actually, you want to hear something funny? So I went to college for psychology, and it was getting boring, and a lot of theoretics. And I feel like I came into college with I wanted to go into engineering, but I just didn't like my experience in math class. It was just boring, and it was very easy for me, but I just didn't like the idea of just constantly doing calculations. Like, it just freaked me out. I didn't want to, like, I don't know, when I see these like professors and these like, huge boards and they have all these equations, I get anxiety because I'm like, I don't want to have to like go to the drawing board literally to figure out a solution. I hate it. It was easy for me to like digest, but I just didn't like the process. So that's why I decided to go more into I guess you can call it the soft skills of psychology and learning about people and helping. But that itch to figure out what's going on in the physical realm didn't go away. And so I remember thinking, I don't know what was going through my mind, but I went into the library and I grabbed a bunch of like quantum physics books, right? And for some reason in my mind, I thought someone was watching me, And I'm like, I don't know. I wanted someone some dude in black to come up to me and like, hey, you know what? We saw you pick up like 5 books of quantum physics. We're gonna induct you into our program to talk about anti-gravity and stuff. Like that was like my way of like, I want to get into this world, but without doing the work. So I'm gonna just check out. I'm gonna just make a paper trail of it, and then just see if anything happens. Did I open any of those books? No. I held on to them for like maybe like 3 months, and then I'm like, all right, nothing's happening. I guess they're watching like for real. And then I brought them back. But in college, I did take a course. I think it was like a philosophy of religion. And in that class, someone brought up the documentary movie, What the Bleep. And that was my actual introduction to quantum physics. Are you familiar with that film?
Yeah,
that
with the
movie?
bleep. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that my head exploded. I'm like, after watching that, my journey really took a turn, and like I just went nose deep, just head first into that world.
Mm.
And this was before like YouTube was as big as it now is now, with a lot of content and all that. But it's pretty cool stuff. Quantum physics and how that's all related, and the math behind it, and
It
yeah.
helps you understand all this distance stuff because they teach you that there's no such thing as that.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing the professor said is the first thing we're going to learn is there's no such thing as time. They say if you can't wrap your head around that, then leave. And people walk right out of the auditorium
And you're
because
like,
you can't do the math. You can't do the math. In Newtonian physics, time is a constant. It's t. In quantum physics, it's delta t. It's the change in time. It's your perception of time minus my perception of time.
oh,
It's time is somewhere in between.
it's relative. Yeah.
It moves. It might as well be a variable.
Yeah. Well,
It's not
technically,
a constant anymore.
oh,
So
that's,
that's a key. He's right. You have to be able to swallow that concept before you can really move forward. Because you really don't understand that time is something that's interpreted by everybody. So everybody's interpreting time differently, which means everybody's interpreting time space differently. And time space is reality.
mm.
So everyone's interpreting reality differently.
So
There's no
now
such thing as location. That's a perception.
we have to package that so that I'll have a very educated excuse when I'm late for like a meeting.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're 5 minutes late. Well, actually, your perception of time is different than mine.
Yeah, it is.
I'm actually early, so
Yeah.
I don't know how
But you get that all the time. You're working with somebody all day long and they're like, man, the day flew by. And you're like, I felt like I was here a year.
right? Or
Well,
car
it's just,
accidents, right? Like
yes.
slow motion. I've been in a car accident and I saw the car go sideways, and I didn't. Now it wasn't like the theater where you see glass floating by you, but
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of thoughts processing in a split second where I'm like, oh shoot, let me just duck down a little quick. Okay, something's gonna happen there. And then you look back and you're like, how the heck was I processing
Mm-hmm.
in an instant? I have this story that I can describe from beginning to end for something that happened in less than a second, which is mind boggling.
Yeah. And think about the people that may have seen that accident. If 10 people saw that accident, you get 10 different stories because
Yeah.
each one of them is perceiving reality differently.
And that's where the detectives have a hard time with a
Yeah.
crime. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I remember the professor used to say, if you're arguing with somebody, never think you're going to get them to agree with you 100%. You get 80%, be happy with that. They don't even perceive reality the same way you do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then male versus female, genetically,
Yes.
biologically. I
Yes.
think someone was like the brain and how it processes everything in data when it comes to a female versus male. It's in perspective of each other. It's upside down and backwards in regards to processing, which is amazing itself. So it
Yeah.
speaks to the need for them to work with each other to combine and create something much more powerful.
Yes.
Like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. We went on some wild trips, and so it's
Yes.
been a fun journey. But you did breathe for a little bit. What were you going to say? Something?
No. I think no. I was just trying to just kind of drive home that concept of location and how things like the remote session works, how the remote Reiki works. Even the technology I saw with the guy you had on here a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah,
there's many ways to go about one thing, and what you're doing, what Gail is doing, what you guys are doing is amazing work, and you're making good use of a technology that for the untrained eye and person, it looks like you're just going in a booth and just listening to music, and then having that placebo effect. But I love the fact that you can visually see it, and then accurately diagnose it, and then different from having it out of body for someone who's mostly out of their body to somebody who can manage their energy, and just like they swipe left for their heart, no pun intended.
Mm.
And then you have the intuitives that you said they're just their crown chakra is just like vibrant. So
Yes.
very interesting stuff. I did want to get into one thing. I know we've been chatting for a little bit, but um, have you seen a difference with someone that maybe I'm curious about the energy signature of someone who is the more on the religious side, whether it be Christian or whether it be Jewish, whether it be a different path. Do you see? Have you looked into the differences of that?
Yeah, and I really I haven't seen a difference, honestly.
Because I was going to
At
say, if
least
you see difference, then you're like, okay, so your religion is wrong. No, I'm kidding.
no,
But I'm just
no.
saying, like, it's interesting. Like, I'm curious what you would see.
What I've noticed is because I have people come in all denominations, you know.
Hmm, hmm.
But if a person is spiritual and they can actually pick up from the field, you see it. They have the huge crown chakra. Doesn't matter what the religion is, they're still picking up from the field. They usually have huge third eye chakras as well. And if they're a preacher, their throat chakra is usually big and kind of leaning to the right, which is more social, more public facing.
Wow.
Yes, because I have pastors that come, couples
Wow.
that actually come to the egg.
You know what? That made me think, if someone wants to be a public speaker and you scan them, and then could you technically, first, you'll probably see that they're having a hard time. Maybe their throat chakra is lit, but it's not really there because they're new to public speaking. And you can tune them to have a more vibrant throat chakra, I'm guessing, so that when they go out into their world and they start public speaking, they might have notched up a skill.
Well, in a real world scenario, because I've had this, they're supposed to be doing outreach. Let's put it that way, right? Which shows a throat chakra that's kind of leaning to the right, but their throat chakra will be to the left, and it's huge. And that's telling me that's someone who has a lot to say, and they're not saying it.
Ooh.
And then that leads me down the road. So now I'm looking for root cause. And so I asked him, did you grow up in a household where you couldn't speak your voice? Did you have a voice as a child? And a lot of times it's no.
Wow.
So we have to work on that. And that can help flip that switch that can turn them into this person that's actually standing in front of someone and speaking. Because their energy has been trained and programmed in such a way to subdue that in them. Because they didn't come up in an environment where they could actually have a voice.
That's, I have
So
another
you have
question.
to kind of go back. You have to go back to the root cause to help them with that. To help them open that flower, open that voice up, open that
Wow.
chakra up, and make it more public facing. And that takes some time sometimes, depending on how rigid the household. I have a lot of people that grew up in very stoic households. They couldn't speak. It was like, the children can't be heard type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. What about digestive health? Like, let's say some people I know, when they go through the harmonic egg and they come out and they have to like detox immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think is going on there?
Well, a lot of times your first session, because your first session in the egg is to reset your autonomic nervous system. So that's to
Mm,
get you out of any kind of fight or flight. And then most people, they detox in some way.
mm.
And some people urinate a lot. They'll find that that's how the toxins are coming out. And some people will be on the toilet for hours. I've had that happen. That's how it's coming out. So
Well,
some people break out. Some people may have mood swings. It's your body detoxing, and it depends on the level at which you have to detox. And that's usually the first session. Usually the first session. Yeah. So I've had some interesting ways that people detox. I don't even know if I want to tell some of those stories, but
my every way of detoxing is hurting people.
no, I,
Yeah.
I had a woman. She did her first session, and she owns a business. So, and it kicked her sex drive into overdrive. I actually happen to know her husband. He didn't know what
He's
was
like,
going on.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes. And sometimes it backfires because now they're chasing that. And it's like that's only going to happen the first time. That's how you detoxed, right? So none of the other sessions will make that happen again.
That is funny. What is
They-
going
they-
on?
right, they're chasing that high.
The wrong referrals. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, this is a very interesting subject matter. Thank you for going deep into these examples. I mean, these stories are awesome. They're amazing. Um, I I applaud you for finding and following your path too. Right? Well, a lot of times we derail, we get distracted, but every step of the way, you followed your passion, and ironically, it always led you to what you're doing now, right? Your passion for, we all have, like, I don't have kids, but at the time of the recording, but I can only imagine you were following your passion to helping you say your son, right?
I do
With,
remote sessions on my kids. My two adult kids, I do remote sessions on them,
yeah,
and I have a younger one, and he gets in there every week.
does his thing. Yeah, the example I was bringing up is like your son's passion for coin collection. You would, like a workaholic would think this has nothing to do with what I'm doing. So I'm gonna not give it that much energy. But you're like, let's go to New York. Let's do this thing.
Yeah.
Let's go to this spot where you can talk to this guy and just speak your heart out, and you guys vibe. And then it turned into like a really solid connection for the next step in your journey with
Yes.
what you're doing, which is like completely. Who would have thought a coin collector would have all these books, like
Yeah,
a
it's
library
crazy.
of
Yes.
official books that you can now,
Yes.
like, that's insane. That's really cool.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
thank you for sharing those stories, and
Yeah.
I'm glad it all tied together, and um, with all these stories of people with different backgrounds having different things that they need to work on, and it just sheds light on how complex our bodies are and how intelligent they are, and just giving yourself that space and that time to assess and to work on those things that need to be worked on. It's just amazing what just something as simple as frequency and like sound and light can do to the body. So I think it's really, really, really cool stuff.
And I always tell people that the egg's not healing you. You mentioned that the placebo effect, but in a way, I think we're going to learn more in years to come is that everything is the placebo effect because you're the one doing the healing. And in fact, we have people set intentions before we start the session because I can take the same colors or the same sound on a different person, but if they have two different intentions, they'll get two different results
Mm.
because your intention is also driving how that egg is actually going to work on you. Because it's basically what it's doing is giving your body's instructions. And we see that. I scan you with the biowell, I see your body's operating under a certain set of instructions. You come out of the egg, you're operating under a totally different set of instructions. And your body's going to be executing that for the next 5 to 7 days.
That's
Like the
awesome.
body's doing the work. We're just, the egg is making suggestions and the body's carrying that out. So you are doing the work. And I empower all my clients with that. You are actually doing the work. It's just like a doctor, you break your leg, he can set it, he can put the two bones close together, but the body knows how to stitch that back together.
Well said.
The
Yeah.
body knows how to do that. The doctor doesn't do that. You
And I
get
feel like,
cut, they stitch it, they get it close together, and the natural entrainment actually makes that wound close up. And I think we're going to see more in terms of entrainment in the future. You're going to hear that word a lot. That's actually what's happening in that egg, and you're going to hear that word a lot. We've
if you
seen
were
it
to
already.
define entrainment in like a couple of words, what would you say?
A couple words is hard, but I could give you a really easy example to think of it, especially in terms of rhythmic entrainment. And this is the way they actually teach it in school, at least when I was in school, is that you have a room full of like small grandfather clocks, and all the pendulums are doing their own thing, right? You put a big grandfather clock in that room, and you come back in a couple of days, all the small pendulums have synced with the big pendulum. You can even see examples of that on YouTube. They'll take metronomes and they'll just hit each one of them, and they're all doing their own thing. Then all of a sudden, they'll sync right up. And that's because nature wants to reach a homeostasis. And that's really the simplest way to put it. Nature wants to reach a homeostasis. And my female clients get it because, say they start a job and there's women working there, and all their cycles have synced. She comes in as the new girl. Next thing you know, her cycle has synced with theirs. That's a form of rhythmic entrainment.
So here's the question.
Yeah.
Let's say there's 4 women. Who's the grandfather clock, so to speak?
Well,
right?
the reason I said there's a group, because they're the dominant group. They've been together longer. So all of their cycles have synced. They're the big grandfather clock.
So
You come in as the new girl, you're the small grandfather clock. So they're the dominant group, so you're going to sync with the dominant group. It's the same thing that's happening in the egg. So I don't know if anyone else, or Gail, anyone explains it, but this is how I explain it to my clients. That egg, that dodecagon creates an energetic field. It's a fixed field, doesn't change. Your field is different every time you come in there. So that egg's the big grandfather clock, you're the small grandfather clock. So even when you sit in that egg, it starts to entrain with you. It harmonizes with you. Nature wants to harmonize. It wants to reach a homeostasis. And I have people, I don't even turn the music on. I haven't turned the lights on. As soon as they get in there, they start crying. They feel the energy immediately. Immediately. It's making changes to their field. And when you adjust your field, that turns into psychological changes, emotional changes, physical changes. And the sound is doing the same thing. That's all sound therapy is. If I want to work on your root chakra, I get a tuning fork that's tuned to the note C. Every chakra has its own note that it responds to, right? So you may have anomalies in your root chakra. The tuning fork is solid. That's a fixed frequency. I put that near your root chakra, it's entraining it. That tuning fork's the big grandfather clock. Your chakra's the small grandfather clock. It's learning from it.
And it does
Same thing with light.
Yeah, it does seem like because that homeostasis is that harmonic, and what would you call it? Like the shape is a healthy shape, right? I'm trying to find the word, but it's like a healthy shape. Like there's no.
I mean, the shape of the egg.
Yeah, like the shape of the energy field is closer to harmony than the average person going in there. So the entrainment happens because something is more harmonic than you. That's what it looks like to me.
Yes.
Right?
And
So
it's from the sacred geometry to the sound and the light. So it's 3 levels of entrainment that's happening in there.
Wow.
It's three levels, and there's not too many modalities that do that. You have all 3 of those acting at one time, creating skill waves. I don't know anything else that does that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's frequency. Your chakras are responding to the frequency at which the air molecules are bombarding that chakra. We call that the note C, if it's that frequency. With light, we know that as red light, right? But it's really the frequency at which those photons are bombarding that chakra. That's what it's responding to. It's frequency. It's frequency medicine. That's what it is.
That's insane. Well, we've gone on another journey.
Great conversation. I love it.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything that you want to first that we didn't bring up that you wanted to bring up, and then let me ask you that first. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up that we didn't bring up?
Something we touched upon, I didn't get a chance to expand on it. We were talking about the remote sessions. You asked me, did people notice a difference between actually physically being in their egg and doing remote sessions? And so I've had people tell me the remote sessions are actually more powerful.
Oh, that's great word.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I have people I do remote sessions for, they've never physically been in the egg ever.
Wow.
I have clients in India. There's no egg in India. I have clients in Panama. I have clients in the UK. I have clients all over the world. all over the country. Most of them have never been in an egg. But for some of the ones, I had one, she was coming to me for months. She was very claustrophobic. So, and it was various differences in her claustrophobia. So one day she could almost close it all the way. The next day I had to have it almost fully open, right? But she finally did a session from home. I haven't seen her since. She always does them there because the claustrophobia thing is not an issue. She's home. She's in her most comfortable chair, and she doesn't have to think about that. And she feels everything that she feels in the egg when she's physically there, without the distraction of being claustrophobic.
Wow.
So she loves it. She was coming a great distance anyway. She was coming from Wilmington to me. That's a nice little 90-minute drive.
Does the image, does it matter how good of a quality is or when it was taken?
No. That's something I've noticed because I've gotten some pretty horrible pictures from people, very pixelated pictures, and it didn't matter.
Like a stick figure drawing.
No, not that. Not that bad. But some pixelated, low quality JPEGs that I had to print out. But what we couple with that though is we're writing their name on the back. We're putting their birth date on the back. So we're using other methods to locate their energy as well. So that's a part of it as well.
Huh.
Yeah. And I had pictures of, different ages, and it didn't matter because it's still their energy.
Huh. That's insane. It's very interesting to see. That's not, well, I'll just say that's not the response I was expecting. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we addressed that. Is there anything else that you felt like we didn't address, or?
No, I think we pretty much covered it.
We went full spectrum. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So is there anything like that's you're working on right now, whether it be an event, something online, anything that you want to take this time right now to share to the audience, and also maybe the best way to contact you?
I would tell. I just did a documentary with Gail.
Yes.
It's called It's Time.Love. Check that out. There's some great people in it. One of them we actually use her music. Great people in there. These are people I admire. So, and you can learn a lot about frequency medicine. It's not just about the harmonic egg, but just frequency medicine in general, and kind of where we're going with that. I would most definitely check that out. It's Time.Love.
Yes, and I'll have a link in the show notes for sure.
Okay. And you can always reach me at charles@chromocymatics.com. You may have to put that up there for me, but I made that word up. I made that one up. chromocymatics.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's that could be another day. Cymatics is just, anybody listening, Google Cymatics and have your mind blown. It's all related.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.